about how these men in Ashrafi,
Oh God, sorry, Dad.
yeah, in Ashrafi, which is where the phalangists came from, are guarding their houses to make sure there's no Hezbollah people coming in. That way, that they'll never bomb those buildings. And in essence, what she's doing is she's collaborating with the U.S. government and Israel, which is trying to foment a civil war in Lebanon because they're losing the ground war. So they want to spark another civil war in Lebanon. Remember that the last civil war lasted 15 years. And that way, that the Lebanese resistance would have to face two fronts. So this woman writes an article about these men guarding neighborhoods that Hezbollah will never come into, but providing facts on the ground that Israel is justified in bombing civilian structures. The other thing I wanted to say before I forget is that during the, and we can talk about the election, but there's a lot of blaming of Arab American community about what happened, the results of the election. And I want to tell you something. These people that are doing that and are going to Starbucks and saying, look, I'm ordering Starbucks just to fuck with you, these people never were on the side of Gaza. They were never part of our movement. And I wanted to encourage you in terms of what to do, is to brace yourself, because the people, the community that we've built in the last year of genocide is completely intact. And those people were always a danger to the movement to start with. So we are completely intact. And in fact, this community that we've built over the last year is the most prepared community to face down fascists like Trump. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Samir. Thank you guys so much for the talk. Just one thing that I didn't hear much of during the discussion, we really talked about American imperialism and its effect on the region, but something that comes to mind, and something that even comes to mind when I talk to some of my Lebanese friends who you say, like you said, there's a lot of fractures between the different opinions coming out of Lebanon. Some of my closest friends happen to be people who hold the opinion that what's happening now is whatever, good or bad. But I was thinking, there's a lot of Arab countries that surround Lebanon and Palestine that have not been, I guess, doing their part and
oh yeah,
in
I got some words.
Trying to help the resistance, or I mean, at the very least, not help Israel. And so, how can we, like, as a resistance movement, expect American government, American people to be on the side of the resistance and Palestinians and Lebanon and all of that when our own people aren't even supporting us? So I just
that's a really good one. I'm glad you raised that, because I am pissed at Egypt and Jordan, and I live it. I mean, my family knows how often am I just on like rampages about like how angry. I'm sorry if there's any Egyptians or Jordanians in the audience, but I'm very angry. Well, so that's actually important. No, it's not the people. And the thing about the region, I mean, look, I don't expect the American government or necessarily the American people to ever be like chanting rah rah the resistance. I just want them to stop bombing and stop giving bombs to Israel, right? That's like what we want. That's like the baseline of what we want. As for the region, I mean, look, Egypt, there was a time when Egypt was the base of Arab nationalism. And there was Jamal Abdel Nasser. And the region loved him. The region loved Arab nationalism. That was a huge threat to the American imperialist project. And that doesn't exist anymore for a reason. The Americans funded his adversaries. And on top of that, the Americans got Egypt ultimately to normalize with Israel. And now Egypt since then has had this just dictatorship situation repeatedly over and over again. I mean, the U.S. gives Egypt, $2 billion or something a year in security aid. It's an insane number. It's like the next highest number after Israel. It's this country of, I'm sorry to the Egyptians, I'm getting all this wrong. I think like 100 million people live in Egypt. Something like 100 million, if not a little bit less than that. 100, God, wow, I undercounted. So 130 million people who hate Israel. A lot of those people do hate Israel, but they live in a country that is run by a dictator that is backed by the Americans to the tune of $2 billion a year. And since the Arab Spring, And since the failed Morsi administration, every single organization in Egypt has been shattered and disbanded and jailed. So it's like, I mean, I argue with people about this all the time, but they're right and I'm wrong, so I get really mad about Egypt. At the end of the day, they're under America's boot. They don't have the capacity to organize, sadly. Because, the idea of like spontaneously just combusting against Israel sounds amazing, but it's not realistic. It's not how the world works. I would love for that revolutionary flame to be lit in Egypt, but it's going to take a lot to do that after everything that's been destroyed. Sorry, you wanted to add something?
What do you say to your Lebanese friends that tell you, well, why can't Lebanon have peace with Israel when Jordan has peace and Egypt has peace?
Okay, but I would actually challenge them on whether Egypt and Jordan have peace.
Real peace. They don't have peace.
Okay, but Egypt and Jordan are two countries with horrible economies. And that's what people always say, don't you, we should, in Lebanon, they say this to me, like, we can be like Egypt and Jordan. I don't want to be like Egypt and Jordan. I don't want to be a slave to imperialism. That's what they are. I don't want to be like Dubai. I don't want to be like Dubai. Dubai is a shopping mall. It's like a Las Vegas shopping mall, like with like a tiny little population and a bunch of people from outside the country that live there, and then slave labor. I don't want to be like Dubai. I want to be Lebanon. And in order for Lebanon to be free, the country trying to colonize and occupy it needs to be dismantled. The Israeli apartheid regime needs to be dismantled. That is like our biggest enemy. Then we can deal with the other stuff. But that's what we need to educate people about. I'm sure you want to add something, Zane.
Yeah, I mean, we could sell our souls like Jordan and Egypt. First of all, Jordan. I have a few students here in the audience today. Happy to see them. And I always tell my students, always separate the people from the governments. The people of the Arab world know, when you go to visit an Arab nation, you will be received well because they can separate the people from the government. I wish Americans did the same too. You have Jordan, where the king is giving speeches, and his wife is actually Palestinian, and he's actually fighting alongside Israel to kill Palestinians. And his father is responsible for killing tens of thousands of Palestinians. That's what it takes to make peace. That kind of barbarity. And then you have Egypt, which is the second largest, recipient of U.S. aid, ruled by a dictator who has 75,000 political prisoners in his jail. And those people that protest, they let them protest both in Jordan and in Egypt, and then they wait for them to get home, and then they become political prisoners and they torture them. And Jordan's presented as this nice nation, and with the king having a British accent, and God knows what. It's the most barbaric nation. When you come, it just has this slick security apparatus, the surveillance that outmatches the Soviet Union, and they wait also for those protesters that are chanting, by the way, and continuously trying to besiege the Israeli embassy, but are failing. They're being met by Jordanian military that's armed to the teeth by the U.S. The U.S. has snuffed out every possible democracy in the Middle East. Every possible democracy, they've overthrown it because they'd rather deal with that one brutal dictator. That way they can negotiate with one person rather than mess, with a messy democracy where there has to be consensus and there has to be votes.
Which is why they have issues with Lebanon and Iraq, by the way. Which is why they have issues with Lebanon and Iraq.
Yeah, exactly. That's a couple of things I wanted to say.
That was a great question, though. Thank you, Samad. It's important.
Somebody here?
I just Googled and to find out if there are local businesses here that a list of them that are supporting the Israelis in this war against the Palestinians, and I can't find any. And I feel guilty because I've been going down the street to Tate, which is this nice little place that has delicious little desserts and croissants and stuff. But I'm wondering, are they on that list? Who's on the list? Is there a list? And who's on it?
So is Barcelona.
Oh no, really? Oh, oops. Can't go there anymore. I didn't know.
I mean, first of all, don't go to Tate. Second of all, a lot of these places, they're very much participating in not only, Israel is not only stealing our land, killing our people, killing our journalists, killing our
180 doctors.
they are also stealing our culture. They're co-opting our culture, and those are stations to rob it. And I'm so happy to see places thrive like Georgetown, like Yellow Cafe next to it. If you walk by there, the chute is completely empty, right? And at Yellow Cafe, there's a line right out of the door.
Who's flying the Palestinian flag on U Street?
What's that?
Oh, Nabihaz. It's Palestinian owned.
Oh, beautiful. Nabihaz is Palestinian owned.
Yeah.
Everyone should go there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Also, honestly, I just want to point out, isn't there a movie called Single White Female or something?
Yeah.
That is great. Israel gives single white female violence about Palestine. Anyone who's seen that knows what I'm talking about. They just they want to become you. They want to become Palestinians, and they want to take over the identity. It's creepy. On top of being horrible.
All right, we have time for a couple more. Let me go back there, and then we'll come to the front.
Thank you so much for this talk. You mentioned a bit earlier about the export of Israeli supremacy, not only in the region, but in the Americas. And one of the companies that supplies some of the most pervasive intelligence technology that's used by some of the most oppressive governments, not only in the region, of course, we know a lot about NSO Group and the role that they played in the Shoshki murder, but throughout the Americas, in Mexico and El Salvador, the role that NSO Group plays in providing surveillance technology for repressive governments to be able to track down human rights defenders and carry out kidnappings and targeting of those defenders. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the efforts to, on top of the BDS movements, to divest from these companies that are part of this, these intelligence contractors, particularly that export this repressive technology, some of the targets to go after them.
No, that's really important. I can't speak so much to the activism around that. I don't know, maybe you can. I know that Palestine Youth Movement is probably doing something around that. I need to look into what's being done. I want to just point out, to add to what Jesse, hi Jesse, thank you for coming, just said though about the surveillance groups and the technology. The war we're seeing Israel carry out today is so scary because it's so heavily dependent on AI. And it's so creepy. I mean, we've all read about it, how AI has been used to basically come up with a quicker list of targets, faster than a human can come up with. Because Israel can't just drop a really expensive bomb on some empty field. They want to actually hit buildings. So you need something to basically give you the coordinates for what to hit, and it's just faster than a human can come up with. They also have these quadricopters. They've also got some crazy plans, which I know Dan has covered, about what to do in basically creating these mini concentration camps inside Gaza and having all this technology and iris scanning software around it. And then in southern Lebanon, what Hezbollah is dealing with, and one of the reasons it's been, they've been putting up a really fierce fight, but this is a different Israel than 2006. They've got drones, they've got a fleet of drones, AI, obviously the air supremacy, and a million other robots before it gets to on the ground combat. It's insane. It's actually amazing that a group under sanction can even put up a fight against such a difficult to fight force, and it's one of the reasons that Israel was able to use human intelligence in addition to artificial intelligence, in addition to things I don't even understand, signet, human signet, I don't know what these acronyms mean, but 2024 is a scary time, and everything we're seeing Israel do is definitely a testing ground for what other countries around the world might want to do in future wars. So this is not limited to Gaza and to Lebanon and potentially, I guess, Iran if it comes to that.
And you wanted to point out to like technology, like where is Dad? Where's that? What's the name of that one?
Oh, where's Daddy?
Where is Daddy? You know,
Which is
yeah.
creepy name.
So where is Daddy is they wait for a person for the target to get home, and then they kill the whole family. Look up where is Daddy. It's who would have thought in the 21st century that with all this advancement that's what we're going to use it. And remember that this is testing ground for the military-industrial complex in the United States. They're testing it on Palestinians because they've dehumanized them to a degree that they become specimens for testing. And that's the kind of technology that they're using to do that. And a student of mine asked me the other day, what are we benefiting with this alliance with Israel? It seems to be a liability. And I said, yeah, it's a liability to you as a U.S. citizen. Right, it is a liability, but it's not a liability to the military-industrial complex here. The military-industrial complex is what rules our economy and is making money. And they don't care who wins or who loses or who dies. They just care if the bullet is expended. That's all.
I think that's why we really have to think, and I think back to what Rania was saying, and also you saying, is the idea of soft resistance is what's really needed. Because, fighting this war with the kind of technology they have, they're willing to just wipe out everyone. I mean, that's it. And really with not a lot of price to pay, in a sense, but the price they can pay is right here, in halls of Congress, and in the way that this country conducts itself, and constantly exposing the horrors that we're funding. I think it's really, really important. So the soft resistance has to continue. We have probably, what time is it? Somebody give me time.
10:05.
10:05?
Yeah.
We are officially closed, but we will take 2 more questions, and then we really have to wrap it up. Sorry about that. Is there a woman that wants to ask a question? You guys, let's go back there for a second, and then I'll come to the front.
Hi, I'm a woman.
Yes, we love you.
But yeah, so I was wondering if you could speak about, because I feel like I've had a hard time understanding the role of China in all this, to being kind of like a little way, because there were like the Palestinian faction negotiations in China recently, and it was kind of, I think a lot of people had trouble figuring out like what was the significance of that and how that would play out, and a lot of people who consider themselves like anti-imperialists here, like asking, like why isn't China doing more? And so yeah, like that's something I've been wondering too, is like, is China kind of just like waiting for like the U.S. to kind of get itself alive by overextending? Like, yeah, so that's just, it's kind of off topic.
No, that's a great question. And girl, let me tell you, if my Chinese comrades are listening, I would love for you to do just a little bit more. No, listen, I think this is a conversation a lot of us are having. And I mean, I think I'm not going to justify, I don't think anyone's doing enough. I've had days where I ask my family, I'm like, why isn't China doing more? I mean it. I would love for China to cut one trade tie with Israel. And I recognize China is scared about what the U.S. will do with regard to like Taiwan or the South China Sea, but my position is, if you're not willing to sacrifice something in the face of a Holocaust, then what the hell is the point of all this, right? But yeah, I don't know. I would love to ask China that question of like, why aren't we doing more? Because I think China could be doing more. I think Russia could be doing more. I think everybody aside from like Cuba and Venezuela, who are totally like in solidarity and suffering along with us because they're a part of the anti-imperialist struggle as far as it goes, needs to do more. And I think it's a real shame, and I don't want to just pick on China here. I think it's a real shame that we live in a world where Israel can commit, or any country can commit, a Holocaust for over a year, and nobody steps the fuck up to put a stop to it. And even the smallest ways. I encourage my comrades in China, my comrades across every country, and even in the Middle East, even to my Egyptian comrades and my Jordanian comrades, everybody step the fuck up and do more. That's all I have to say.
Also, in terms of China at the economic level, they're letting the United States sanction itself into a box. You know, they sanction this country, what is China doing? Quietly spreading its economic tentacles all over the place and expanding its power. And also remember that they wanted to orient before this genocide started. The United States wanted to orient to the Far East, and now they're not able to. So China's actually happy about that. So that's.
I also want to add, I agree with what you said, and I'm just like, okay, fine, do your strategic patience or whatever, but like I don't have the patience for it. But also, I mean, look, I do recognize, even though I'm pissed, that if it wasn't for China as a counterweight to U.S. sanctions, Iran's economy would crumble, and Iran would not be able to give weapons to the different groups that are able to put up at least some bit of a fight against extermination. So I do recognize that countries like China do give space for other economic poles so that there can be some level of multipolarity, but I do struggle with this because at the same time, again, a Holocaust is happening. So like at what point do you step in to do something? I'm not asking for people to step in and militarily intervene, though that would be fantastic, because if anything ever required a military intervention, it is this. But cut a fucking trade tie. Like, one, cut a cultural exchange program. And it's not just China. No one is doing it. No one, except for Cuba and Venezuela that don't have Israeli embassies. But like, no one else is doing it. And I don't understand why. And now you know how the Holocaust happened, the first one, and all the genocides that have ever had. Now you know how they happened. Because the world is full of people who don't want to step up, and it's really, really sad because what we need more than ever right now is internationalism and solidarity, and we're just not getting that from governments, and I'm like at my wit's end. So thank you for that question. I think it's an important conversation to have.
Don't blame the black guy for your election results. Okay.
I heard you did this, black man.
Yeah.
That's what the liberals are telling me.
Always blame the black guy. Yeah. Consistent American storytelling.
Yeah.
I'm Timon Freeman, and Black Man in Therapy. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart because I actually ran for a DC delegate here in this city on this very issue. And I ran openly on this issue when black people was telling me to be quiet about this issue. And the results were I got 21,000 votes, which was more than anyone has gotten against the incumbent in 10 election cycles. And Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. Okay. Having said that, I want to know, what do you suggest that we do on an individual level? Because if we are here in the underbelly of the nation's capital, the underbelly of the beast, if we are here, we are strategically located. Now, unlike Miss Medea Benjamin and the wonderful Cole Pink, give her a round of applause. Everybody. She has done all that she can do. But what can we do when we leave here with all this information? What would you like us to do? You want to see all of us buy a Palestinian flag from a reputable manufacturing company, you know what I'm saying, that doesn't also sell Israeli flags on the side? Do we all fly Palestinian flags tomorrow like it was 9/11 when it was American shit? You know, what do you want us to do? Now, I was going, this is a leading question. Now, I myself have been a war tax resistor for 25 years. That's right. I have not filed federal income taxes in over 25 years and ran for federal office and put my name and face all around this city where I can afford to, but they be pulling my signs down, you know what I do. With revolution on it. So I'm not asking you to do something that I have not done. Thank you very much. Now, what do you want us to do to interrupt this system? Because as an angry black man in therapy, We need to be angry, but we need to do something to work through our therapy to address that anger. Thank you.
That's beautiful that you have not paid taxes. I mean, that is brave. That is brave that you have not paid taxes.
That's not brave.
Well,
that's not brave.
well, I know that not everybody.
It's not a bomb.
Well, that's okay. Okay,
He got paid
fine.
because he has no income. So that's
Yeah, he's right. He's right. He is right. If you have something to lose, if you are wealthy, yes, you have something to lose. You spent your whole life building up something. I'm talking to the low income people. Because all you got to lose is your ass. And in Washington, D.C., if you are a family of four, if you are making under $95,000, you are low income, boo-boo. And if you are an individual and you're under $67,000, you are low income, boo-boo. So I'm talking to people of a family of four that makes less than $95,000 and an individual under $67,000. Why don't you put your ass on the line and do something for the people?
Okay.
But that's my challenge. What do you think we should do to challenge
So
this?
that's a great question. There are things people can do individually and collectively. If you are somebody who has deep pockets, you put your money in places like, go donate to things. Donate to independent media, and you can talk to you about that. If anybody in here is a billionaire, I will talk to you about that. But no, in all seriousness, like, donate to independent media, donate to activist organizations. Like, they do require funding. Donate to Code Pink. Like, with people, there's like staffs that need to be paid. We can only grow if we can pay people salaries, that sort of thing. But not everybody has deep pockets. So it's a good question. What can you do? As an individual, you can do your BDS stuff, the boycott, divestment. Like, you can boycott just for that business. At the end of the day, you have to be a part of a collective. If you have time, go to organizing meetings, go to a Code Pink meeting, go to an Answer Coalition meeting, go to a Palestine Youth Group meeting. If you're in college, go to an SJP meeting or whatever your college Palestine group is. You cannot do it by yourself. No individual is going to fix this problem. I'll also add that I always plagiarize Vijay Prashad. I love Vijay, and I think he's really smart. And he always tells the story about Ho Chi Minh during the Vietnam War. These Italian comrades went to go visit Ho Chi Minh, and they were like, and for those who don't know, Ho Chi Minh was the leader of North Vietnam, who defeated American imperialism and reunited Vietnam, and that's a very powerful, very successful country. So power to Vietnam, but do more for Palestine, please. But the point is, right, these Italian comrades go to visit Ho Chi Minh, and they ask him, what can we do to help? And he tells them, go home and make revolution. And that's the point, right? We have a very anti-democratic system here. We have so many problems in this country, and we can't deal with them because we have this like trillions of dollars worth of military budget for all these bases around the world to control everything, and we can't fix our problems until we fix that. So imperialism is a domestic problem. We need revolution in this country. So we need to be working collectively to fix this country. We fix the problems in this country, we take the boot off the neck of Lebanon, of Palestine, of Russia, of China, of Venezuela, of Cuba, of the entire global south. So get involved in organizations that are working towards that, anti-war organizations, or even organizations working to get money out of politics. There's so many different groups you can join. Organizations working to end the blockade on Cuba. You can't do it alone. You need to get involved in collective groups. And if you don't have time or you have too much money, give your money to it.
So I just want to, did you want to say something to wrap up quickly? And then I'm going to give the last word to Medea Benjamin to tell us what we can do.
Of course, yeah. So just a couple of things I wanted to mention in terms of what you do. First of all, locally, you could put pressure on your city council here.
Yes,
By the way,
yes.
we're in Ward 1, and the Ward 1 council person is a Zionist, and who actually worked for AIPAC.
What's their name?
Brianna Doe.
Huh?
Brianna Doe.
No.
Brianna Doe. Brianna Doe.
Yeah.
What name is that?
Brianna Doe.
So people around the nation are doing, and I think Andy, you were even involved in the city, putting pressure on the city council. The second thing is the fact, like Rania said, is that people are connecting. People in Asheville, for example, when there was flooding there, they connected that issue with the military funding. And actually, pro-Palestine activists are working to deal with